Welcome
to the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 374 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to have you here. Going to be live hacking on some Firefox stuff today. Let's see how it goes. I don't know how today is going to roll out. I've got a lot of changes to my browser that might be kind of interesting. I've got some developments in browser land that you might find neat. Let's dive in and talk about it. Hold on, let me start by switching to my screen. It's July 31st, episode 374. A reminder, no plan survives breakfast. I kind of have a general vague sense of what I'm hoping to do during this episode, but I might get stuck, I might get sidelined, I might get, who knows? I might get distracted. Just follow me along as we figure stuff out. If things go wrong, they go wrong, and we'll figure it out together. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to. And as I update links and stuff, you might want to click on some of those links. Well, if you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description for a link to the agenda. Or if you're on Air Mozilla, check out the details section. And if you're on Twitch, it's down in the channel details. And there's also an episode guide. I want to talk about the episode guide because we have a viewer-driven episode guide. This is something that viewers just like you contribute to. It's hosted on GitHub. If you're not sure what that is, you can read in the agenda here a guide for creating pull requests and contributing to the episode guide if you want. And that's a great way. If you've got your own corrections, addenda, or content that you want to add to the episode guides, anything to help fewer viewers. If you're like, yeah, this is one that's really good to watch because of this and that, go ahead, send me a pull request. I'll happily do it. Or if I got something wrong, that's another opportunity for you. You can actually me. Speaking of the episode guide, I think we have a number of pull requests to go through, and I believe all of them are from SmurfD. Thank you very much, SmurfD. I'd say the 95% of the pull requests and adjustments to the episode guide come from SmurfD. So thank you for your work. Really appreciate it. If you've ever made use of the episode guide, then you can thank SmurfD. Let's see here. But before I go into looking at the episode guide, let's add episode guide updates. I wanted to mention I'm traveling a little bit. I know I just came back from travel, but I'm traveling again in August. I'm going to be gone in the middle of August, so there'll be an episode next week, but then following that, no episodes on the 14th or the 21st of August, and then I'm back on the August 28th. That's just due to travel, work travel, and stuff. So sorry about that. You get a couple of episodes, and then I'm away again, and then I'm back, and then that's it for holidays. Those are my holidays until the winter. So let's see if I come back super relaxed. I don't know if you can tell. I've got a little bit of a tan. I was at the beach last week. Maybe the tan is starting to fade. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing, I want to talk about Pip for a second before we dive into this episode guide update stuff. Pip, if you aren't familiar with it, I have a soft spot for Pip, mainly because I helped write the initial implementation that landed in Firefox. I'm the owner of the Pip component. There's this, actually, hang on, well, first of all, you also might notice I've got vertical tabs enabled. This is the new vertical tabs implementation. It's still very much a work in progress, but I'm trying it out, so bear with me if I'm having difficulty finding tabs and stuff, because I'm not a vertical tabs user, and I'm just trying to test it out. If you want to test out vertical tabs, there is you have to be running nightly right now. Vertical tabs. You have to have the sidebar revamp. I think it's called revamp. Sidebar revamp enable set to true. What? Hold on. Sidebar revamp set to true in about config, and then over here in the little gear menu, you can switch between horizontal and vertical tabs. Now, if you've got a bunch of customizations up inside of your tab strip, maybe you've got some widgets there, toolbar buttons and whatnot, this isn't going to move anything over just yet. That stuff has not been implemented. So you might want to hold off, but if you have a standard horizontal tab strip and you're willing to try the vertical tab strip, you can give that a shot if you're on Nightly. A lot of work to be done still. This is very early days, but just starting to test it out. Anyways, vertical tabs. Also, auto pip. That's what I wanted to talk about. I want to show you something kind of neat. If you go to About Preferences, there's this section called Firefox Labs. This is in Nightly, and this will, I think, go up through beta and then out to release. These are little knobs and dials. If instead of sending users down into About Config to flip like arcane preferences, we've started to expose things inside of something called Firefox Labs. And one of those things just came in from a volunteer contributor. It's called Auto Open on Tab Switch, or that's the title here. Picture-in-picture Auto Open on Tab Switch to enable picture-in-picture on active videos when switching tabs. So if you have that enabled, this is pretty neat. I'm pleased as punch. If I go to some video, let's go to Big Buck Bunny, my classic test video. I'll play it, but I'll also mute it. So I've got this thing playing in the background. Now let's say I change tabs back to like GitHub. It will automatically pip it. And if I go back to Big Buck Bunny, it automatically unpips it. And, you know, I so far have found this very nice. I don't have to like fiddle around and click this toggle or click that toggle. I just need to switch tabs and then it'll pip for me if I've got a video playing. And that's been a pretty nice quality of life adjustment. Now, the reason it's under experimental right now is because it hasn't gotten a whole lot of testing from our QA team, but we wanted to sort of show people that this exists and get some broader feedback from our testing community and our Nightly community without enabling it by default. So, and I don't even know if we'd ever want to enable this by default. This might be a thing we might want users to turn on in preferences, this behavior. I'm not sure yet, but we wanted people to be able to try it out and see what it's like. I realize my head is over top of the pip window now. But it remembers. So if I go back here and then back here, it'll open up again. It's very nice. Thanks, Auto Pip, and thank you so much to the volunteer contributor who committed that, Danielle. Who, if you use Twitter, you can follow them here. If you want to see what the patch looked like, I think it was Auto Trigger. This thing. This is the bug where it got implemented. And I'm gonna put a link to that in here if you want to see how it was done. The patch, of course, is here. I reviewed it with some other people, and I can put that link there. All right, so AutoPip. Danny Colin is saying it works fine so far on his Linux build. I'm glad, or Linux install. I'm glad to hear it. I suspect that there are going to be some weird edge cases. As with most things, pip and video related, there'll probably be some weird edge cases, and that's why we really want to throw our QA team at it before we let this ride out as something not experimental. But if this is something you do want to try and you're not using Nightly, you should be able to turn it on in the experimental sections, a section on the release channel when 131 goes to, 130 goes to release, which is, what train? 130 goes to release on September 3rd. It goes to beta in just a few days. So if you're using beta, you'll be able to turn it on August 5th. And if you're using release, you'll be able to turn it on, opt into the experiment on September 3rd. So yeah, I'm getting distracted by Big Buck Bunny here. Let's go back over here. And also what's kind of neat about this is if you pip this like with the toggle and you flip tabs and you flip tabs back, it doesn't unpip it. Like it behaves normally, or how it's normally behaved if you toggled it with, manually with the button. It only does the auto open and auto close behavior if it was just a normal playing video. It has to be like in the viewport active playing, then it will and I think it has to be the largest video, then it will try and auto pip it. Anyways, pretty neat, and stoked about people trying that out. So if you're using Nightly, or give that a shot. Okay, so let's talk about the episode guide, because there are all of those pull requests. I want to get those in before we start doing backup patch with locks, web locks and stuff. So let's look at the episode guide. The episode guide is here. There are a number of like chores I need to do to bump like packages. I'll probably do that some other time because this is a static website. I don't know why. I don't know if this is a Firefox bug or if this is a GitHub bug, but this looks super broken just then. For a second there, like the layout was really broken. I wonder what happened there. Let's go ahead and add some of these episodes. So the earliest one in this series is 361 all the way to 364. So let's do those first. And the way I review these is fairly quick. So if this is not interesting to you, just hang on. This will not take long. 361, April 3rd. We first check to make sure that the dates are correct. April 3rd, 361, that's right. The links look correct. The jump, we were working on the jump list stuff and a crash. That's right. Yeah, that's all basically a copy of the agenda, and then there's the rate this episode form. Fantastic. Yeah, that looks good to me. No qualms. April 10th was episode 362. Jump list, more jump list stuff, Favicon stuff. And I answered some questions. Some people asked me questions. People haven't asked me questions in a while. You know you can ask me questions, right? And one way you can do that is via the form in the agenda to rate this episode. There's a section in there you can ask me questions, and I will try and answer them on the stream if I can, if I have the answers. I don't always have the answers, people, but I can try. Okay, episode 363, that came from April 17th. That looks right. Yeah, April 17th, Just Dave. I talked about Just Dave hacking on Bugzilla and live hacking, so that's a different stream if you like watching live hacking streams, and if you're watching this, you probably do. It's another stream you could watch. And we talked about new tab wallpapers, which I think are rolling out by default soon. If you've been enjoying my nice background here, like I set this background a while back, and like probably I mentioned it for the first time during this episode in April, and so it's been a couple of months. And I have not looked back. I've really been enjoying my nice new tab background. There are more now that you can choose from. You can use solid colors or sort of like abstract graphical thingies, solid colors, or you can use these photographs. But I've been enjoying this background color. And I don't know. I think these like solid colors and abstract options are still being worked on. I believe the first version that's rolling out to people on release is just the photographs. I think that's true. But don't quote me on that. I'm not part of the team. But I think it'll be rolling out soon. Okay, so I added all that stuff. Yeah, that looks great. All right, May 5th, or May 1st, rather. May 1st was episode 364. Yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Sorry about last week. I had network issues. There's like an extra space here. That was probably my bad. Oh, all right. Well, I'll fix it. I'll fix it real quick. Let's try and fix that jump list thing. Yeah, let's break that patch up for review. Okay, commit change, fix an extra space character. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and just merge this. I'm pretty happy with everything we got here, so I'm gonna say thanks, Smurf D, once again, saving my bacon. All right, next up, we've got episodes 365 to 367. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. May 8th, 365. That was, yeah, May 8th. May 365, May 8th, 2024. I talked about how it's an episode every day of the year. We talked about, oh yeah, close all duplicate tabs. That's still available if you've got vertical tabs. The tab manager button's up here, and so you can close all duplicate tabs still. And I had a duplicate new tab, so that's good. I talked about jump list stuff. I talked about comments and conventional comments, and went on some break or something. And then April 15th, or May 15th was episode 366. That's good. No episode next week or the week after due to travel. Once again, I was traveling, and I talked about the weather. Oh yeah, that's another thing that was added to the new tab page was the weather widget, and that's going to be rolling out soon. We worked on removing the legacy backend. Oh, so good. I was so happy when we finally got rid of that thing. And then on June 5th was episode 367. Memories. I'm back, and I talked about diode.zone. I've stopped restreaming there because I think they're trying to dial that service down. Context menu translations. Yep, that's great. You can now do that. I can right click on this and I can translate a selection. Although this is already translated to English, I'm going to translate context menu translation from English to German. Context menu Übersetzung. I don't know if that's how you. I don't know if that's what that is a correct translation. I don't speak German, but I could translate it from German. If I go to about translations and I paste in the translation and I translate it back to English, context menu translation. So at least Bergamo thinks that's the right way of saying it. The built-in local translation engine. Okay, I'm happy. I'm happy. Let's merge to the episode guide. Thanks. All right, last one. This one's 5 episodes. This will take us to 372, so it's getting pretty. We're almost up to date then. So 368 was June 12th, right? June 12th. That's right. And what were we doing that day? The dates look right. We commandeered a patch from somebody. We did some relanding. We started coming up with some tests for some of the backup stuff. I started talking about backup around here. So sad Denshub isn't watching because that would have been a funny moment. And in comes Denshub in the chat. Oh, I thought I saw Dennis typing. All right. So yeah, that all looks good. Next up was episode 369, June 19th. The story finally over. June 19th is right. The dates look right. The story's finally over. We finally finished Windows jump lists. We started running more tests. We really sort of pivoted to, I think, backup stuff. I think all of these things like this, this is probably backup work, right? Yeah. So we did that, and that was episode, what was that, episode 369? Correct. All right, and then episode 370 was on June 26th. That looks right. More backup stuff, and making it so that you couldn't transfer backups between applications because that's not supported, and making sure that you can't downgrade with a backup because that's also not supported. Profile downgrades in general, fully not supported. Let's see if we can work on the About Preferences UI for backup. Yeah, the About Preference. So the backup UI is available now inside of Nightly. So all of this stuff is currently disabled, but you could, if you wanted to try it out. Do not use it for like real backup stuff. Like this is just for testing. But if you're interested in trying out the backup system and giving us feedback, but like do not use this to like as a way of keeping your critical data safe, because we have not finished testing it yet. It could completely thrash your data. Like don't do it. But I mean, I have it on by default, but that's because I'm a developer and I'm willing to like I'm willing to eat my own dog food, even if the dog food happens to have poison in it. It's good. That's a good signal. It's like, oh, I shouldn't have put poison in my dog food. But if you are interested in turning it on, you can. Let's see here. Backup preferences UI enabled. If you set this to true in nightly, you can get at the backup UI. And about preferences, do not use this to keep your data safe just yet. We're still testing it. I mean, we trust what we're working on, but we want to make sure that our QA people have really had a chance to make sure that it's behaving the way we want it to. Okay, so I talked about async tab switcher, and then episode 371 was July 3rd. July 3rd. That's right. I talked about OS Key Store. Oh yeah, this stuff. I ended up landing this eventually. So the OS Key Store stuff it now works, and we have our tests working. So I'm pretty happy about that. So yeah, that was a really good episode if you care about OS Key Store. And then lastly, episode 372 was on July 10th. And what did we do? A scheduler. Scheduled backup call to action. Implement scheduled backups call to action. So we were starting to sort of finally flesh out the last few bits of the preferences UI. And that's all done now. So I'm pretty happy with that. I wrote some tests. A file bug for backup still being displayed as existing after having disabled backups and restarting. And yeah, we posted a patch too. So that was good. There's an extra space there. I'm going to edit that real quick. Get rid of extra space character. I tried to pronounce, what was it? It was like context menu translation. What did I tried to pronounce? I guess, I don't know if you can hear me, Dennis, but I said I tried my best to use German, and anytime I see German, especially a really long German word, it comes out like very intense. Yeah. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Let's finish this off. Thanks so much again, Smurf D, Merge. Thanks. All right, episode guide is up to date. Let's go into backup stuff. Let's start hacking on things. So, what have we got? Well, I've got a couple of patches here. I wanted to talk briefly about weblocks. Yeah, please do check the recording later, Densha. See if I pronounced it right. Weblocks are a thing that I was sort of tangentially aware of. What conflicting changes? Did I have some half-committed work or not committed work? Oh, I was debugging something. Weblocks, if you're not familiar with them, are a web API that's available to websites that allow you to, it's like a nice primitive for sequencing asynchronous things and making sure that, like, if you've got a job or some kind of asynchronous function that does within it a number of yields to the event loop, and you want to make sure that another asynchronous function doesn't happen to interleave the actions of the first asynchronous function, weblocks may be of interest to you. So check this out. Weblocks. Weblocks are, you may have heard about a concept of a lock. It's really kind of just taking a reservation of a thing. It's like putting your hand on something, and then once it's given to you, you can do a thing. And then once you're done with that thing, you release it, and anyone else who was waiting to get a lock, then they go. Like there's like a queue. There's like people waiting to use this one resource. It's access control, basically. It's a way of making sure that not a bunch of things are using a thing at the same time, and that once you've yielded control over a lock, that the next thing waiting for the lock can go. And so, that sort of thing is often used for multi-threading or dealing with like concurrency or any kind of situation where you've got concurrency and shared memory, and you don't want to accidentally, confuse threads by overwriting shared memory in a way that's like unsafe. Data races, locks are often one technique for avoiding data races. This is not exactly the same, but it has some of the same principles. So it's a web lock is something that you can just request. There's this locks property off of the navigator object, the navigator like global object that you may or may not be familiar with. You can provide the name of a lock. So a lock is scoped to a domain. You can't request like Google's web lock from google.com or something. The string that you provide here is sort of like, it's restricted to your domain. It's scoped to it, and you say, okay, I want to request a lock for something. Like you can give it some unique identifier. Say I'm holding a lock, and then if nothing else has that lock already, then I think some tick of the event loop later, you will enter your potentially async function and start doing those things inside that async function. And when that function exits, the lock will be released. And anything else that has requested that lock in the meantime will wait until this whole async function is done before they get to run. And that's really, really nice because we've got in the backup service, we've got a bunch of asynchronous things happening because we're trying to make the backup service really lightweight and transparent so that you don't notice that backups are being created. They should occur in the background. You shouldn't have to like stop everything while Firefox creates a backup for you or something. We want it to be something that you don't even, that you turn it on and you never think about again, and it's just kind of like creating them for you in the background. And so that means that we yield to the event loop a lot. We don't block the main thread. We don't want you to feel like a backup is being created. We don't want to steal resources from what it is that you're actually doing. Like if you're watching a video or doing something important with your browser, it's like, okay, we'll create a backup later. Like we'll only do work off of the main thread and at low priority or something. So we have these functions like create backup is the big one. Create backup actually does the job of like, okay, let's kick off creating a backup. This is a very heavyweight operation. We're going to copy a lot of data stores. We're going to do a lot of disk IO, off main thread disk IO, but we're going to do a lot of disk IO. And, we don't do it all at the same time. We don't like, for each piece of, for each data store that we're copying, we don't like launch a thread or dispatch a job to an individual thread or anything. There is an IO thread and we send it a queue of jobs. So there's like a serialized list of jobs that are going to this IO thread and it's crunching through them. So that means that, there is a queuing order, but, we'll be like waiting. We'll be waiting for a while. Like creating a backup can take several seconds. It can take tens of seconds. It depends on the speed of the machine, how many resources are in the background, and how busy the machine is. Because we're trying to keep we're trying to make sure that the browser remains responsive. So in that time, it's possible for some other routine to go, hey, we need to delete this backup, because there are certain situations where you want to delete the backup. So for example, if a user, we're being fairly conservative with our retention policies for the backup to start. And one of them is like, okay, if the user has intentionally cleared all of their history, like they've just said, like, I want to blow away the last 5 minutes, destroy the backup. We're starting with like being very conservative that way. We don't want to leave it behind accidentally. We don't want there to be any trace of a of that history in the event that the user has expressly said clear history. So that's one example. And we don't want, like if a backup is in the middle of being created and then the user clears history, we don't want a deletion event to occur in the middle where like we will have deleted like the prior backup and while a new backup is being created, because then, we violated that thing I just mentioned where we don't want to clone like your history if it's got, or we don't want data that you've just cleared to be cloned. So a deletion request, in the event that a backup is underway, we should delete the backup that's actually underway. Like ideally we'd cancel it, but canceling is very, very difficult. So instead what we'll do is we'll queue up an immediate deletion. If we have a backup underway, then wait until it finishes, and then as soon as it's done, blow it away. And a nice, like, I was trying to figure out a nice way of doing that. And unfortunately, I kept coming back to state flags. Like you check, okay, on deletion. Oh, are we in the middle of a backup? Okay, well then set this flag so that whenever the creating a backup reaches the end, it checks that flag that was set. And if it's true, it's like, okay, now delete the thing you just created. And it ended up getting fairly messy. And then I remembered that weblocks exist, and they're like really nice for this. You don't have to worry about managing state flags or anything. You just have to agree on what the name of the lock is that you're trying to hold, and that way, if a deletion request comes in for a backup and a backup is not underway, we don't have to do anything special. The weblock mechanism will be like, okay, no one's holding the lock yet. We'll go ahead and do the attempted deletion. But if a backup is underway, it'll do the work of like deferring the backup, the deletion until after the backup is created. And that's really, really nice. And similarly, if we're in the middle of deleting a backup and somehow the scheduler kicks off and we start the process of creating a backup, that will only kick off after the deletion has finished. So we've got this really nice way of making sure that we never interleave these things, because you're running the risk of fairly undefined behavior, unexpected behavior, if those two things can interleave. The creation and deletion of a thing, it's not precisely a data race in the sort of the concurrency threading like RAM model of things, but it is a race. It is a kind of a data race, but it has more to do with storage and files and stuff. All right, so weblocks. That was like a short presentation on weblocks. And so if you're with me on this, it's like, great, let's use them. Well, the problem is that backup service is inside of a module, an ESM. That's not a thing that has Navigator. Navigator is not, like, websites have Navigator. If I go and open here, I can say Navigator. I've got Navigator here. What I don't have is Navigator if I'm inside of like a module, because there's no window. I could try and grab the most recent window and use Navigator, but that's really strange. And especially on Mac OS, when there might not be any windows open. You can actually be in that state where there are no windows open, but the application is still running. So what would be really nice is if the parent process inside the module scope, we could just use weblocks without being necessarily associated with a particular window. And I wrote a patch to do that. It landed yesterday sometime. And if you're curious about that, it's here. I was really being coached by the DOM team, because I was outside of my comfort zone. I didn't know how the weblocks mechanism works under the hood. But they were very helpful and made sure I did it right, and I wrote a test, and I was very, very pleased. So that's done. That's in Nightly, and you need to have like what's called the system principal in order to take advantage of it. There's just a lot of noise right now on my phone. And now I want to take it. So that landed in Central, and now I want to take advantage of using it. So if you're inside of an ESM, a module, one thing we have got available to us as a privilege in the privilege script is we've got this thing called import global properties. And this allows us to bring in globals that, Window normally has, or in our case, Navigator has, like window.crypto for cryptography, like the cryptographic primitives that we use. You could bring them into scope using cu.import global properties. What's another one? There are a few others. What are they? Fetch. Window.fetch. Well, you can bring fetch into the ESM scope as well. I actually, now that I think of it, I wonder if I actually even need to use import global properties, or if that will, or if it'll just kind of do it right on its own. Because I don't recall using import global properties crypto in archive encryption. Did I use it? Crypto. No, I didn't. So I got it for free. Because what we're looking at right now, just so we're clear, is I have a patch that switches us to using weblocks and a deferred task to debounce deletions and creations of backups. So if I run a test, let's build what we've got. I'm going to run the tests, a small subset of the tests, just to see whether or not it works, and then I'm going to get rid of import global properties locks to see if it breaks, because I'm very curious. If it doesn't, if this is necessary, I highly expect this to explode. So we'll see. Okay, let's go. Mock test, browser performance backup test, XPC shell test, backup service. I think create backup. The tests for it are inside test backup service.js. Create backup. Yeah. And how about delete last backup is also in there. Okay, so we're gonna run this test. Let's see if it likes it. I think it does. I think the last time I ran this test with this patch, it liked it. Let's just double check. Ah! Whoops. Did I do this wrong? Did I not mock build properly? Mock build. Maybe I needed the newest artifacts, because I need to get the native code. I have a feeling what I had just done was I had not mock builded properly. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's double check. We need to be using the right artifacts here. Because yeah, I made a native change so that locks could be used. So if this doesn't work, oh, come on now. Do I have to do a native build? I definitely have lock manager. Allow lock manager. So central, my last central is Tuesday. Maybe I need to rebase. Let's pull and rebase. Sorry, gang. Hey, what's up, Doug? Elad is in the chat. Hey, good to see you. I hope you're having a nice day too. Yo, if you're not familiar, this happens, I'd say this happens maybe once or twice a year, usually in the summertime. I've got a good friend, one of my closest, oldest friends, Elad Difficult. You should, I don't know how often, Elad, you stream anymore. Maybe in the summertime, you're more of a summertime streamer. Elad is like, in my mind, the premier Necrodancer, Crypto the Necrodancer streamer. Been streaming a bunch. Well, if you like good content, go check out Elad Difficult's channel for games and good times. Yeah, it's good stuff. Anyways, Elad and I have been friends since forever, basically. More than 3/4 of my life, I'm pretty sure, if I haven't done the math. And in the summertime, I get an Elad visit, and that's very nice. All right, so let's rebase. Playing a game called Void Stranger, a quality puzzle game. We're close to 3/4 of our lives. Damn. It's been a good time. It's been a good time. Let's see if we can beat it. Let's go 7/8. Let's go. I'm hoping to go right to the edge. Let's go to the day we're dead. we'll be friends. That's the hope. That's the plan. Let's do it. Okay, so I'm rebasing my stuff on top of a newer version, and maybe that's got everything I need. I guess that could have been the problem, is that I was based on a revision that didn't have the lock manager change that I needed. So this will take a quick sec. I have to do an artifact build. It won't take like so normally when I have to do a build, I hear your collective eye rolls. It's like, holy smokes, this is gonna take forever. I'll see it in an hour. But an artifact build, generally speaking, is faster because it just has to download the binary bits, and then we do some packaging. So if you'll bear with me for 2 minutes, it'll go and do the stuff. In the meantime, maybe we can take a look at what this patch that I wrote does. So it's not a whole lot. What I did was, yeah, like I said before, we're using locks here. I have the name of my lock is write backup, because I'm considering like the creation and the deletion of a backup as basically the writing of a backup. Whether or not you're writing the backup or overwriting the backup with just nothing, you're deleting it. I'm considering those writes. It's like write access. Excuse me. So I called the lock, when I call it write backup, because you need to give it a string. And I'm using this thing called the abort controller. If you're not familiar with the abort controller, that's actually a really, it's a neat, recent-ish sort of metaphor affordance inside of the web APIs. It's a nice way of hooking up basically one of those Wile E. Coyote detonator plunger boxes to a bunch of stuff in the event that you want to shut a bunch of things down with the press of a button. So in this case, I've got an abort controller with a signal, and I can pass that to locks.request. That's one of the things that it accepts. And then if we're shutting down, I can basically abort any locks that are in progress or like that are queued up. I can just say, we don't need to do any of those. So that in the event that there's like, I don't know, 3 backups had been queued somehow, on shutdown, we'll just go like, nope, we're not going to do those, which is really, really nice. Abort controller is really great, especially if you want to remove an event listener without having to hold a reference to that event listener. You can, I think add event listener now takes a signal. Yeah, it takes signal in the object that is passed as the third argument. So you can pass it a signal, and so if you wanna, if modify text is a reference to the function, the event handler for click, instead of like remove event listener click modify text for cleanup, you can just call controller.abort, just like hold a reference to controller and do controller.abort, and it'll remove the event handler for you. And you can use that for like a bunch of event handlers. So if there's just like, if you've set up like 20 event handlers, you don't have to hold on to the function references to do removals. You can just use the same abort controller and then abort them all at the same time. That'll unregister them all. It's fairly nice. Okay, so enough exposition. The build finished. Let's go ahead and run our test. Void Stranger. That's the game that Elad's playing. Void Stranger game. What is this? Ooh, that's pretty retro. I like it. This is giving me like Game Boy vibes, like original, like gray brick Game Boy vibes, which I really like. I feel like it's the pendulum is swinging. You know, I think Crysis was like peak photorealism in video games, or not peak, but like we'd reached a tipping point where we're like, okay, this is looking pretty real. Maybe we've lost something in trying to make things photoreal. Like we can continue to improve graphics in games and make it so realistic, but also there's something nice about, you know, pixelated graphics. Like there's an artistic choice being made here, which and like, yes, it's nostalgia, but it's also you're given as an artist some freedom whenever you're using like pixel art as opposed to having things be photoreal. And yeah, I'm a fan. I'm no game theorist, but I think there's something to it. Also, if you're familiar with Scott McCloud, who wrote Understanding Comics, he has a theory that the less defined the artwork is, if you're reading a comic book, for example, if the character that you're following, who is like the protagonist that the reader is supposed to kind of be like following and emoting with or empathizing with, the fewer details there are in their appearance, the easier it is for the reader to like sort of project themselves and visualize themselves as that character, and they connect more with them. That's a theory. I buy it. I buy that theory. All right, so let's see if we can get away with not using import global properties, because I think that's possible, that we don't need it. So let's double check. Scuba. Oh, I'm so stoked. Anytime I get a nice visit from Eli, that's like something I want to put on like a cool shirt. Yeah, okay, I guess I have to do it. I've got to do it. I don't know why I have to do it with locks and not with crypto, but I'm for the cryptography stuff, but I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so I'm happy with this patch, and I actually think that this patch can go up for review on its own. The one part that I want to get rid of is the debounce regeneration, because nothing actually calls debounce regeneration, and that will be called later. And maybe I should just get rid of the debounce from this patch altogether and extract it out. Regeneration debouncer. Yeah, that seems relatively simple. Let's do that. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to do uncommit. So we've got changes to this one thing, backup service. I'm gonna do hg uncommit, then uncommit interactive. So what's interesting about this is I'm choosing which hunks to remove from the commit. So not the ones to keep, the ones to remove. So that's different from commit interactive, which is where you're like choosing which ones to add to the commit. This one's I'm choosing the things to remove from the commit, which is it's like saying yes, that's incorrect or something. So what we're going to do is we're gonna not remove this part. We're gonna keep all of the lock related things, and we are going to remove any of the deferred task debouncer things. So we'll keep this, the shutdown abort controller. This is what we're going to uncommit, the deferred task here. We're going to keep the lock. We're going to keep the shutdown abort controller. We are going to get rid of the regeneration debouncer. We're going to... Wait, I did it the other way around. I did it wrong. We want to uncommit the regeneration debouncer and keep the abort controller. So uncheck to keep. So I'm going to uncheck this as well, because this is a big block of basically we just indented a bunch of stuff, and I want to keep it. Thanks, Tazo3D. I think that's probably spam. Apologies for the spam inside of the chat. If anyone has mod powers, I think some of you might have. I may have granted mod powers. Feel free to delete that person. Right. That's we're keeping this stuff. We're keeping this stuff. Keeping this stuff, and keeping this stuff, and this stuff as well. This is all just the create backup stuff, and the only reason that it's showing up inside of the diff is because we indented all of it. So this is one of the drawbacks of of the way diffs are calculated is that a white space change that just kind of like indents things. Oh, thank you, Smurf D. Thank you, Smurf D. We're going to keep the shutdown abort controller. Very nice. Okay, we will uncommit the debounce regeneration, so we will keep those checked. We will uncommit the debounce regeneration, and we will keep delete last backup all the changes in here. And that should do it. So the result of this should be that all of the stuff that's checked should just be anything related to debouncing. So that's right. Yes. Wait. We want to keep that. To keep that comment block working properly. So that's good. Yes, debounce. Yes. Oh, and like this wasn't ready anyways. I had like a I didn't even have the value here. Debounce recreation debounce rate MS. I didn't even have that defined. I was using a hard-coded value, so we'll uncommit that stuff. And then the stuff I do end up I think that's it. Oh, and then this last bit here, the debounce regeneration method. Yeah, we don't want to uncommit that. Okay. C. Ha! It hated it. Damn it. All right. So I think I have to do HG uncommit abort. So I guess this can happen. Well, let's see. What state am I in? So it just didn't work. So I'm gonna have to do this manually, gang. I'm doing a manual. So we can take advantage of our the memory of our editor here and the memory in our heads. So we're gonna get rid of the deferred task. Deferred task, we're gonna get rid of the debouncer, regeneration debouncer. We're gonna get rid of this. And get rid of that. Right, and that is what we will commit, or we'll update our commit with. I guess that was simpler, and I probably should have done that the first time. But I got tricked. I tricked myself into trying to be clever and to show off. My friend Elad was watching, and I wanted to use uncommit. That's what happened. Use weblocks to sequence deletions and creations of backups. Yeah, that's what I want. And this might end up getting spun out into its own bug. But for now, I'm just going to do that. And then I'm going to revert. I'm going to just undo all of those changes so that I've got what I had originally in the one patch as uncommitted work, and then I'm going to create a new commit. I'm going to call this one a whip because I've got that like unfinished chunk in there. Bug such and such, use a deferred task part 2, and this is a whip. Work in progress. That's what it stands for. Part 2. Debounce, regeneration, backup regenerations using a deferred task. All right. What I want to do now is I want to get this up for review, but the bug that it's associated with isn't. I want to split it out into its own separate bug. So let's add a new bug here. we're going to say prevent interleaving of backup creation and deletion using a web lock. Okay, so in such and such, what was the... I'm actually going to change the relationship. I'm going to get rid of that dependency. I'm actually going to add the dependency here. In bug such and such, I made it so that privileged parent process code, browser UI code can use web locks. And now for my reviewers who are going to read this, I'm going to link to the documentation. Can use web locks. This is a really nice way of ensuring that if a creation of a backup is underway, that any subsequent attempts to delete will be queued. Delete a backup will be queued until that creation is completed, and vice versa. This allows us to avoid cases where we unintentionally, unexpectedly create a backup when we're halfway through deleting one, or deleting a backup when we're halfway through creating one. I guess this is basically a rephrasing of the above, but I'm gonna kind of really spell it out what I'm trying to do here. All right, let's go ahead and submit. And now I'm going to change the relationship so that this one depends on this one instead. And then we're going to update the commit message to refer to our new bug. Just checking the time, how we're doing. Okay. Use a web lock. This allows us to avoid creating a backup while we're in the middle of deleting one and deleting backup when we're in the middle of creating one. All right. Double check one last time what we think of this. Board controller. Then yeah, that stuff, we indent it all. Okay, I should mention what the abort controller is for in the Oh, right, and I never call abort on it. Do I? Abort? Oh, I do. Okay. should mention what is up. An abort controller and an abort controller is used to clear the WebLock locks request queue on shutdown in the unlikely event that a whole slew of backup creation and deletion requests have queued up. All right, let's post this for review. But before we do that, let's quickly run our tests, the entire test suite. This shouldn't take too long, but it's worth doing. I apologize too. This may cause my stream to. I realize that the XPC shell tests in particular, because it ends up like doing them all in. Actually, you know what? I can probably avoid the issue that I'm thinking of. By default, it'll run them all in concurrently, and that saturates all of the cores of my machine, the machine that's running OBS, and so there's a lot of competition for processor cycles, and then I start like dropping frames like crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell it to I want to run it sequentially. Sequential, right? Is it sequential? Sequential. Here goes. Okay, so those work. Now we have to run the browser tests, the Chrome tests, and then the Marionette tests. Here are the browser tests. All right, looking good. The Chrome tests. Good. And then finally, last but not least, the Marionette tests. Mike, Dark Trojan asks, Mike, how do you learn about new tricks like weblocks that might be useful in your work? Is regularly researching new stuff part of your work process? I find out about them from you. Haha. Well, I learned about weblocks actually from a recent blog post. Like, I'd heard about weblocks. So one of the things I do is I follow a couple of mailing lists. One of them is called Dev Platform, Mozilla Dev Platform. And this is where you'll hear about things like intent to ship, intent to implement. This is a great way of hearing about like engine changes that are being started that people are working on. Usually that has to do with like web standard things, and weblocks is one of those things. I'm pretty sure if we look in here, we'll probably find, yeah, intent to ship weblocks. That was back in 2021. So like I'd heard of weblocks, and this is probably how I heard about them. Is I'm subscribed to the mailing list and I heard about it. Now, I had stopped thinking about them for years. And then I saw this blog post, I think it was like from the Figma team. Figma, WASM, blocks, weblocks. Something to do with, this is a blog post that I saw within like the past year. Was it this? WASM weblogs. Oh, it was Notion. It was Notion. So I read this blog post from a company called Notion, and they used like a WASM compiled version of SQLite to run in the browser, and I was like, oh, that's neat, let me read about this. And one of the things I read about was how they used a weblock as a sort of a nice way of, how does it work? In a nutshell, each tab has its own dedicated web worker that can write to SQLite. However, only one tab is permitted to actually use its web worker at a time. A shared worker is responsible for managing, which is the active tab. When the active tab closes, the shared worker knows to select a new tab. To detect closed tabs, we open an infinitely open web lock on each tab. And if that web lock closes, the tab must have closed. So that's like a way of detecting without like waiting for an event from a tab to say it's closed. Is like you can open a web lock on a particular tab and then I guess have the tab hold it, and then I guess once it's holding it, you could queue up something to occur whenever the web lock is released, and then when the scope of that tab goes away, the web lock will close, and then or like it'll release the lock, and then the thing that queued up will run. So that was their way of, I guess, making sure that stuff happens whenever a tab closes. We would probably do it differently because we as the browser, but like I thought it was kind of like a neat hack, and it reminded me about web locks. And then whenever I saw the sequencing issue that we were dealing with for backup, I was like, web locks might be kind of nice. And then I realized, oh, like this might be a nice thing to make use, like make available to privileged code. So Dark Trojan, I think you work on Thunderbird, if I'm not mistaken. If you are using Com Central, I think you also now have access to web locks. You should be able to use them in your modules, and I think you should be able to use them on the navigator in like the Windows scope. Navigator locks request test lock console log. Does that work? Yeah. Yeah, you can use it in the parent process now. So locks for everybody, locks for Thunderbird, locks for Phoenix, locks for Firefox. All right, so that patch is now up for. We ran the tests; they all passed. Let's post this up for review. Why delay? Let's post this up for review and see what it looks like. How's my time? I'm gonna probably missing reviewers. Oh, whoop. I have to add my reviewers. Dark Trojan says I'm gonna have to check it out when I get back. Please do. And yeah, I highly recommend it. I mean, I'm not saying that everyone should follow Dev Platform. Dev Platform is a great way of seeing what like is being implemented in Gecko and for Firefox, like at the platform level. There's also a like intent to bot, intent to chat bot, Gecko chatbot. No, what is it? Where can I? Gecko Blink intent to ship. So there's an intent to ship bot on both Mastodon on the Fediverse, but also Twitter. And this is a bot that follows a bunch of browsers' intents to ship's mailing list and monitors them. And then I guess you can follow it on Blue Sky and Mastodon. Intent to ship. There's an RSS feed. You can kind of like get a sense of what everyone's intending to ship and on what schedule. Blink, Gecko, WebKit, and Edge. Everything here is broken. Need a new source. So yeah, here it is on Mastodon, for example. Intent to ship. So Blink. Oh, these are quite old. These are quite old. Hold on. There must be a more recent one. Let me find it. 1 second. Yeah, this is the one I was thinking of. Intent to ship bot. And so, this one's up to an hour ago. So Blink sent out a bunch of intents over the last few days. Gecko sent one here and here. Iterator helpers and this thing. Blink is sending a lot lately. They're drowning in money and people, so they really send a lot. WebKit had one here. Intent to ship from Gecko. Transition behavior, yeah. So anyways, there you go. That's how I learned about weblocks. So I'm going to add my reviewers here. R equals backup reviewers. And that looks good. Let's submit. I wish Dev Platform had an RSS feed so I could follow it in Thunderbird. It's a mailing list. Doesn't Thunderbird allow you to follow mailing lists? I mean, you could... that intent to website, intent to ship .dev, what was it? Intent to ship .dev. There's an RSS feed here you could follow. That's an option. Bot was coded here on glitch. All right, so that's posted. Let's do a double take. Let's see what it looks like up on Fabricator. Make sure we don't sound like absolute lunatics. Yeah. All right, backup block name, shut down abort controller. Yeah, this is nice. Fabricator does this nice thing where it's like, those are all indents, nothing too crazy here. And then abort controller on quit application granted. Yeah, amazing, amazing. So that's waiting on review. And now we can base some of other stuff on top of it, like the debouncing. So we'll put that on top of what we just wrote. Oh, you meant the Firefox dev mailing list. Sorry. They removed RSS support a few years back. Pour one out. Yeah. Let's see here. So I'm going to take a look at this patch. This just adds this little like debounce regeneration thing. You know what I can probably do is merge this with the places observer one. So let's put that on top. Denshub says you should build your own email to RSS service and then hides. Yes, don't fall into the nerd trap, Danny Colin. I don't recommend it. All right, so now I want to merge these two commits. So what I'll do is I'm going to use histedit. And now everyone's debating the finer points of what language to write our email to RSS service in. Someone suggested Go. I mean, Rust, obviously. Or you could try COBOL. Anyway. Here we go. We're going to roll these two together. Actually, I should have used this commit message. Oh well. I copied it to the clipboard. We'll update the commit message now. All right, so the topmost commit has our places observer set up, and then a regeneration debouncer. Okay, so let us update the commit message, and then we should work on this patch and write some tests for it. That's the next step in this whole journey. SmurfD being cheeky, saying you could subscribe to the mailing list. Very nice. To regenerate backups. This debounces backup regenerations using a deferred task. All right. So One thing I want to do is debounce. Is we're gonna actually define this value, recreation debounce rate ms. I've picked half a second, but in tests we might want to decrease that somewhat. Compression level, static get recreation debounce rate ms. The amount of time in milliseconds to wait for our debouncer, our backup regeneration debouncer to kick off a regeneration. In milliseconds. And that is a type number. Great, so that's the one thing I wanted to do, and then the other thing I need is documentation for what a places observer is. This is the places observer instance used to monitor the places database for history and bookmark removals. To determine if the backup should be, if backups should be regenerated. Type places observer or null. And then what do we have? Dark Trojan's like, who uses email? I had a conversation. Who was I talking to with? I was talking to friend of a friend, basically, and they were like, how do I get in touch with you? I want to send you this thing. Are you on Telegram? I'm like, no, I'm on this thing called Mastodon. You can send it to me in that way. I'm also on Signal. You can send me on Signal. He's like, I've never heard of any of these things. And I said, well, you could always email me. And he looked at me like I'd asked him to send him a telegram. It's like I had said, well, you could always send smoke signals or something, or you could use a messenger pigeon. That's the vibe I got from him. He was like, what, email? Yeah, I think for this was a younger person. I have a feeling for them, email is not exactly what they're used to. I could be wrong. Some of my younger family members use email. That's how they communicate with me. But I think they do it begrudgingly because that's how I prefer to communicate with them. I'm like, send me an email. And they go, all right. And then they send me an email. Right. I need to document this. Handler for events coming in through our places observer. On places events. So it's a places event. Places events. The one or more batched events that that are of a type that we subscribed to. Returns nothing. Doesn't return anything. We will get a page removed event if a page has been deleted both manually by a user, but also automatically if the if the page has aged out of the places database. We only want to regenerate the backups, regenerate backups in the manual case. Reason deleted. Note that if any of the conditions are, any of the events that we iterate result in a regeneration being queued, we simply return. There's no point we simply return without processing the rest, as there is not really a point. Okay. I think we're at the point now where we should create a test for this. This was working. I mean, we can test it manually. Let's test it manually. Let's test it manually. And then we've got 4 minutes. I don't know if we can write a test for this in that amount of time. Probably not. But let's take a look. So, settings, backups. Backups are off. Let's turn them on. I won't turn on sensitive data backup. And then let's wait for a backup to be created. Okay, a backup got created. So now it's saying at 2:27 a backup got created. Now I've got a bunch of browsing history here, right? See, I got some browsing history. See, under history, there's a bunch of browsing history here. Let's delete some. Let's say, okay, I wanted to get rid of this YouTube multiplier thing. That almost looked like I was at an adult site, but I wasn't. And let's pretend I don't. This is a YouTube multiplier. Let's pretend that I wanted people to not think I'd been at an adult site, even though I hadn't on my work machine. Although sometimes that is required. Sometimes we have to debug those sites, and that is hilarious. But let's try and delete some of these. Delete pages. Hey, backup recreated. Good stuff. Backup regenerated. Let's do it again. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, Den Shub is on the front lines there. I shouldn't have said hilarious. That was my bad. The hilarious is not the right word for it. It is, we got to put on our hazmat suits. You know, it's like big goggles and go like, okay, what's wrong with this website? Let me put on my big rubber gloves for examining the website. Yeah, it's the job. It's the job. Okay, so that worked for deleting history. What was the other one? It was clearing history, right? Clearing history. So sure, if I clear recent history, let's clear from the last hour. That didn't look like it did anything. Let's see if our breakpoint was being... let's set a breakpoint and see if our observer is being hit. Or maybe I have to like visit something recently, like doot. Like if I visit these 3 websites. Now if I say clear history, where was it? History, clear recent history, clear it in the last hour. So I did regenerate a backup just then. I saw it in the logs, but it wasn't because of this. Was it because of page removed? Let's do that again. Let's visit some sites. Clear recent history. Yeah, it's because of reason deleted. Okay. So when is history cleared? Like, good. So it works. It's a tough job, Smurfd says, but someone's got to do it. The way I've heard it is, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Yeah, it's a dirty job. I don't know if there are any Faith No More fans here. That song is called We Care a Lot by Faith No More, and the chorus goes, it's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. Okay, well, when does history cleared fire? Fired whenever history is cleared. Thank you very much. Let's look at the implementation of this. This landed back in 2020. Okay. Yep. In history.jsm, inner implementation of history.clear. I see. So who calls history.clear? I'll bet you history.clear is a little less refined than like this one. So clear recent history is choosing like the last hour. I'm going to blow away everything. I wonder if that'll, I wonder if that'll do it. Let's make sure our breakpoint is set. Yeah, it's this one. Then we regenerate. Good stuff. Okay, that works. So those are 2 cases we need to test. I need to test these cases. Individual site removal, total history clearage. We'll probably need to... Dark Trojan, I was trying to avoid going there, man. I was trying to avoid it. I'm trying to keep this stream like PG as best I can. This is a family show. I'll sometimes do a swear. I'll do like a PG rated swear. I try not to drop F-bombs in here. Yeah, I need to write those 2 tests, but I think I'm going to call it there. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 374 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that was interesting. Let me know what you thought. Let me know what you thought of the stream. You can you can follow this link. Here, I'll put it in the chat too. Rate this episode link. Forum link. You can follow that link. That'll take you to a forum where you can let me know what you thought of the stream. You can also use that link to send me a question. If you've got questions, you can send me a bunch of questions, and I'll do my best to try and answer them the next time I'm streaming, if I have the answers. And if I don't have the answers, I'll say I don't know. But you can try, and let me know what you thought. I read everything that comes in, so don't hesitate. Why delay? And I will be back next week, but then a reminder, no episodes on the 14th or the 21st. So hopefully see you next week. Hey, have yourselves a great week. Have yourselves a Greek week, but also a great week. And I will see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye. Oh, vertical tabs.
The joy of coding.
See ya.